Hello, everyone, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the World Government Summit COVID-19 and Government virtual series. I take great pleasure in welcoming you all today to our session titled Limitless, Maximizing Productivity in Uncertain Times. Without further ado, I'd love to introduce our esteemed panelists today. Jim Kwik, CEO and founder of Kwik Learning, and Patrick Noack, Future Foresight and Executive Director of Future Foresight and Imagination of Dubai Future Foundation. I take great pleasure in welcoming both.
Hi, Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to the World Government Summit series on COVID-19. So this is an initiative which is aiming to explore the impact of the viral pandemic on the future of government. So I'm Patrick Noack, I'm Executive Director of Future Foresight and Imagination at the Dubai Future Foundation. So one of the teams I lead within the Dubai Future Foundation is Dubai Futures Research, and we've done a fair bit of work to explore the future of, for example, workspace, education, work, and more. And as we're all working, most of us are now working from home, we have identified that in particular in the UAE, pre-COVID home working was only relevant, or only about 10% of the population did any amount of working from home. And so this suddenly has exponentially increased to almost universal working from home. And so there's been a very, very steep learning curve, certainly here, but also across the world. I think it's fair to say that for once, the world, the entire world, everyone on this planet is facing very, very similar kinds of challenges and conundrums and uncertainties. We're also reading pretty much the same headlines, which are unfortunately quite often relatively negative. So today's paper, which I read, talks about economic recovery taking until the end of 2021. Egypt facing economic challenges given the lockdowns. Food banks in the US struggling to meet demand. So these are all very dreary realities that we are constantly reading. It's therefore no surprise that surveys have found that over half of the people interviewed feel that they're less productive at work, or in their work, and that over 80% feel helpless and that they need support. So to break away from this, in this session, Jim Kwik teaches us to be limitless, to unlock our mind's full potential. And Jim is here online working, joining us from New York City. And so that there's absolutely no question as to who Jim is, he's the one with the brain on his t-shirt there. So Jim, as you will know, some of you will know, he's a global expert in brain optimization and accelerated learning. He's dedicated his life to helping others unleash their true genius and brain power. And he also hosts the podcast aptly named Kwik Brain, and is a New York Times best-selling author of Limitless. And you can see the book just behind his right shoulder there. In conversations with Jim previously, he's told me that his publisher was wondering whether the right time to publish this would be once the pandemic had subsided. But of course, it's a great challenge to now making sure that people can make the most of their time, of their brains, of their potentials. And so the book was published not very long ago, right in the midst of this global pandemic. So in the next 30 minutes, Jim will give us his views of what we're collectively going through right now, that we're living a transformation towards a new world, leaving the old world behind. That through daily choices, we can reframe what we're living now and how we experience all of this. Jim will draw on some important models from his latest book and teach us frameworks to achieve what we don't think possible and help us get unstuck and make progress in life and at work. Sound too good? Well, Jim has been coach and guide to the great, the good, and the famous of this planet. So I really look forward to what Jim has to teach us during the session. So just in terms of handing over to Jim, He'll be presenting for the next 30 minutes or so. So please take that time to provide us with your questions by using the tab at the bottom of the screen. And also, please indicate what country you're from. That should give us plenty, I'm sure it will give us plenty of food for thought during the Q&A session at the end of Jim's presentation. So over to Jim for the next 30 minutes, the moment we've all been waiting for. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Patrick, and to the whole World Government Summit team, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real honor to be able to share with you today. I hope you are safe and that you are well. In this session, I'm going to be talking about Limitless, content from my new book on how to maximize productivity and even your positivity in uncertain times, as we need an adaptable mindset to adjust to a new reality. How can you become more limitless in a perceivable limited world? And we know that a negative mind can't create a positive world or a positive life. And the metaphor that I'm going to use for everybody here, and I encourage everybody to take ample notes, I'm going to give you some practical, proven, simple ways to be able to become more productive when you're working from home, how to manage your mind in times of crisis, how to optimize your focus in a world full of distractions. And so the metaphor I'm going to use is that of transformation of a butterfly. A butterfly is a profound symbol of change. It's a profound symbol of change in cycles. And we are going certainly through a change like that right now, economic and otherwise. And so how can we offer real hope and real tangible help? And so when I'm talking about metamorphosis, sometimes when a butterfly, let's go to the caterpillar. Caterpillar feels like it's the end of the world. It becomes a butterfly. And I want you to emerge from this cocoon stronger and wiser and as best off as possible. And that's my goal for this session right now. So when I use this term cocoon, many people could relate with physical distancing, where we feel like we are alone. And sometimes we're alone with our thoughts, or we're alone with our doubts, or maybe we're alone with our fears, or we're maybe alone, we feel alone, and that could be a challenge. And one of the challenges is that we cling to a world maybe that was, rather than progressing and continuing this metamorphosis and this cycle. And I believe that although the beauty is often perceived in the butterfly, the growth really happens in the cocoon. And that's what we're going to talk about. 5 keys while we are cocooning to be more productive, improve your performance, so you can come out and soar. So I'm going to make it very simple. I always alliterate everything. Sometimes I use some memory mnemonics to help people to retain the information very well. So I'm going to give you 5 C's while we're cocooning. 5 simple C's. Now, before I give you those C's, there's a quote in my book from a French philosopher that says, life is the C between B and D. Life is C between B and D. B stands for birth, D stands for death. Life, C stands for choice. I believe that these difficult times can define us, these difficult times can diminish us, or these difficult times can develop us. We decide. We decide. We always have choice. And in terms of the cocooning, here are 5 choices, simple choices you can make for yourself, for your organization, your team, for your family. The first one is clarity. The first C is clarity. Clarity is, solitude is a wonderful time for self-reflection. Sometimes when you are racing through life, you're racing through your day, we don't take a pause to check in and say, are we going in the right direction? And with this global pause, this is a nice time to take some time to check in with ourselves. And one of the clarifying questions I would suggest is this: what's most important to me in life? What's most important to me in career? What's most important to me in contribution? what's most important to me in these relationships and my impact and my community, and really connect and reconnect with what's most important to you. The second clarifying question I would offer everybody to ask, and you can ask of yourself now, is once you know your values, what's most important to you, ask yourself a second clarifying question, which is, are my actions aligned with those values? Are my actions aligned with those values? Because often if we feel frustration, or we feel like we are sabotaging, or we feel doubt, sometimes our actions aren't aligned with the things that are most important. For example, a lot of people will say, I feel so burnt out with everything going on. I am so busy, I have so much to do. And often when someone feels burned out, it's not because they're doing too much. Often it's because they feel burned out because they're doing too little of the things that they value, the things that light them up, the things that are most important to you. And so make sure you're in alignment. That gives you clarity. Again, solitude is a wonderful time for self-reflection. The second C to cocooning after clarity is care. We know that self-care is not selfish. Self-care is not selfish. And more important than ever, do we need to care for ourselves and our loved ones and our communities? Because with chronic stress, the effect chronic stress has on the brain, it actually shrinks your brain. Chronic fear actually suppresses our immune system. It's an area of science known as psychoneuroimmunology, meaning that if we're always in a state of fear, it makes us more susceptible and vulnerable to colds, to flus, to viruses. And so for part of care is physical hygiene. We know we should be washing our hands and sanitizing things and keeping distance. But I also suggest mental hygiene. Mental hygiene, meaning how are you caring for the most important part, which is your mental health and your brain fitness. And so part of it is controlling the input of what you are putting into your mind, if you will. Just like social media has an algorithm that if you're scrolling through social media, if you happen to engage with all of the dog posts, you watch all the dog videos, you like all the dog videos, that algorithm will show you a lot more dogs, and you feel that everything is related to dogs. Well, if you indulge with everything that is scary, if you're watching all the things that potentially are dark and threatening, what happens is you're engaging with that material and your mind has the same similar algorithm, and it just starts feeding you what is dark and scary. The challenge is you have very little bandwidth to put focus on possibility, on things like opportunity, on things like what you could be grateful for. And so in the book, I talk about various things you could do for care, a good brain diet, things like optimizing and prioritizing your sleep, which is so important, opportunities for stress management, because when you're stressed or in fearful state, you go in fight, flight, or freeze, which is not wonderful if you want to make progress. In fact, when I talk about the book title, Limitless, it's not about being perfect. It's about progressing and advancing beyond what you believe is possible for all of us. And so that is care. What can you do to be able to care for yourself, your loved ones, your community? After that, clarity and care, you have the third C, which is contribution. Contribution. I mentioned that chronic fear has an adverse effect on our mental and emotional health, and even our physical health, and as does stress and anxiety. One of the ways out of fear is service, service to others. When you put your focus onto somebody else, to making a difference, things change because you can't be in that fearful state when you're focusing on giving. And so contribution, to find out how you can contribute, a simple question: how can I invest a little of my time, my talent, or my treasure to make a positive difference? How can I invest some of my time, my talent, or my treasure to make a positive difference? And for example, for what we are doing is on social media, teaching children how to learn when they're not in school. the subject on how to learn, how to focus, how to study technical material, how to remember things. That's our way of doing contribution. For our way of contribution, another way is we're donating 100% of the book proceeds to build schools for children who don't have access to education, clean water, healthcare, and also Alzheimer's research. How can you contribute in a meaningful way for you? And it could be something simple as calling a neighbor to make sure they're not alone, or providing food for people that are in need. How can you contribute? And then after contribution, you have the fourth C of clarity, care, contribution. And the fourth C is creativity. Creativity, meaning what have you always wanted to create that you maybe put off to when you had time? For example, it was during the Great Plague that William Shakespeare created Macbeth. He created some of the best works for himself. It was a personal renaissance. He created Antony and Cleopatra. It was during when they closed down London University there, and Isaac Newton had to physically distance himself. He was sitting in his yard at home underneath a tree, and an apple fell on his head, and he created the theories of motion and the theories of gravity. What have you always wanted to create? Maybe a business, an invention. You wanted to write, you want to create music, you want to create something. I believe that right now, especially where the economy has been shifting, even before this, where jobs are sometimes going to automation and machines and artificial intelligence, what's not going to be as easily outsourced are things that make us limitless. When I talk about limitless, I believe the ultimate limitless resource we have on planet Earth is human potential. You know, it's not the sky is the limit, it's our mind is the limit. But there's no limit to your creativity, your ability, our ability to solve problems, our imagination. There's no limit to our ability to come together. There's no limit to human determination and ingenuity. What can you create during this time so you can be a personal renaissance? And then finally, the fifth C is capability. Capability, meaning you have your to-do list, an ever-growing to-do list of things that you need to get done. But do you have a to-learn list? A to-learn list? Because we know that right now in today's global economy, that knowledge is not only power, knowledge is profit. And I don't just mean financial profit, I mean all the treasures of your life. You know, the more you can learn, the more you can earn in all the areas that give you happiness and satisfaction, not just financial. It could increase your health, your personal fulfillment, your level of impact. But what have you always wanted to learn that you didn't have time for? And right now we have unfettered access to the world's information. Have you always wanted to learn things like management, or you want to be able to learn things like wellness? You want to learn things like in the area of political science. You want to learn salsa. You want to learn speed reading. You want to learn another language. What have you always wanted to learn? So dedicate this time to learning. And I think the number one capability today to help you survive and thrive in a disruptive world in turbulent times is your ability to learn how to learn. Because if you can learn how to learn, everything after that gets easier. In a world where the half-life of information is getting shorter and shorter, where it's getting outdated, we've discovered more about the human brain more in the past 10 years than the previous 1,000 years combined. And what we found is we're grossly underestimating our own capabilities. So learning how to learn, how to focus, how to study technical material, how to read faster, how to be able to critically think and reason, have analytical and divergent thinking abilities to solve problems in your life is the most powerful skill to survive and thrive. And so those are your 5 C's to be able to become limitless, to have a limitless mind so you can have a limitless life that you desire and that you deserve. Now, right now, I'm going to share with you the Limitless model. And the Limitless model is a framework for not only learning anything faster, it is a framework and lens to be able to unleash human potential, your own performance and happiness. And you could apply this towards any area of your life, micro as an individual, or for a family, or for a community, a nation, and a planet. Okay, this is the Limitless framework. I invite you right now, while you're taking notes, to draw 3 intersecting circles. 3 intersecting circles. So all 3 of them overlap a little bit. All right, so 3 intersecting circles. And what I want you to do is, these are the 3 circles, or the 3 elements to becoming limitless in a limited world. And I want you to make this practical. I want you right now to think about an area of your life where you're not making progress, where maybe you feel stuck. Remember, limitless is not about being perfect. It's about progressing and advancing beyond what you currently believe is possible. And so what area do you feel like you're not making traction, where you feel like you're in a box? When people see me on stages, and I've had the opportunity to speak all around the world, I do these demonstrations where maybe I'll have dozens of individuals, or maybe 100 people stand up in an audience and introduce themselves, and I'll remember all their names. Or they'll give me 100 words or 100 numbers, and I'll memorize them forwards and backwards. And I always tell people, I don't do this to impress you. I'm doing this to express to you what's truly possible. Because the truth is, everybody watching this, no matter your age, your background, your career, your education level, your financial situation, your gender, your personal history, your IQ, everybody could do that and more. We just were not taught. If anything, we were taught an unconscious lie. And when I talk about lies in the book, I uncover 7 lies. And a lie for me is a limited idea entertained. That's what a lie stands for, a limited idea entertained, that keeps us from growing or learning as an individual or as a culture. Now, when we're going through these lies, we were taught a lie that our intelligence was fixed, that it is your memory, your learning, your potential. You take a test and it's like, that's what you are at 8 and that's what you are at 88. But we know that genius is not born. Genius is in fact built. Okay, so let me share with you this limitless model. 3 intersecting circles that you're drawing. And now when you're thinking about yourself in this box, that's a 3-dimensional box. And there are 3 dimensions that keep you in that box. And they're the same 3 forces that will liberate you. And those are these 3 circles. Now, the first circle is that of your mindset. I'm going to give you 3 M's, your mindset. And your mindset I'm defining as your set of assumptions and attitudes about something. Your attitudes and assumptions about the world, or what's going on right now with the world. Your attitudes and assumptions about business or economics or education, your attitudes, assumptions, even about yourself. So what would fall in this circle? Things like what you believe is possible would fall in this circle. Also, what you believe you're capable of. So what is possible in today's current situation? What is possible in today's economy? What is possible today, but also not just what is possible, what are you capable of? That would be part of your mindset. Part of your mindset would also be what you believe you deserve, or your team or your community feels like it's possible and capable and deserving. Now the last C and the M, there's gonna be 3 M's, 3 circles. The last M are methods, the methods for doing something. Now in the book, when I was talking about this thing of accelerated learning, I talk about 5 methods for learning faster, specifically on how do you focus in a distracted world, in a world full of rings and pings and dings and social media alerts and app notifications. Everything is vying for your focus. We talk about the advanced studying, because you have to remember technical material, whether you're a student or a student of life, every age of every stage. We talk about how to remember things. That's the largest thing that we focus on, is human memory, because without memory, there is no knowledge. Also things like reading and processing information, because many people feel like they're drowning in information, but they weren't taught how to really swim adequately, that you're taking a sip of water maybe out of a fire hose. So how do you catch up, keep up, and get ahead? And finally, critical thinking skills, right? These are the methods, but I could teach somebody a method, for example, for how to remember people's names, right? Very simple business etiquette, social etiquette skill. But if your mindset says, oh, I'm too old, or I'm not smart enough, or I have a horrible memory, if that's your mindset, you're still going to be stuck in that box, even if you have the appropriate method. or the appropriate method for innovation. If your mindset says it's not possible, you'll still be stuck. Okay, so that's your mindset. The second M is your motivation. That's the second M, motivation. So it's mindset, motivation, and methods. And you need to unlock all three areas to do what you believe is currently impossible. Now, how do you define motivation? Motivation for me is a very simple formula, a very simple formula. If you struggle right now working from home and you don't feel motivated, or you feel fearful, or you feel a little bit of doubt, and you don't feel like you can make progress, and you're maybe procrastinating, putting things off that you know you need to do, there are three things that you could focus on to help make it better. Now, this is the formula for sustainable motivation, not just a surge of motivation where you pump yourself up and say, okay, I'm gonna do this, this, and this, X, Y, and Z, and nothing gets done. X, Y, and Z don't get done at the end of the day. Here's the formula, P times E times S3. P times E times S3. Now, after doing this, this is me teaching for over 28 years, almost 3 decades, I realized that genius leaves clues. Having worked with everyone from children with severe learning challenges to aging seniors who are onset dementia. I lost my grandmother to Alzheimer's when I was very young, and I was going through learning challenges also because I had a traumatic brain injury. People are very surprised to hear I had learning challenges all through school. Everything up to 18 years old, I struggled. And it took me an extra 3 years to learn how to read. When I was 9 years old, a teacher pointed to me because I was slowing down the whole class in the lesson because I didn't understand. And she said, that's the boy with the broken brain. And that label became my limit. It put me in that box. And so motivation, P times E times S3. These are the three forces that will help you to be motivated consistently. The first P, let's say we're designing the ultimate motivated human being. And what has to be there? P stands for purpose, purpose. And I don't mean your life's purpose, although I talk about that in the book. I talk about having a reason to consistently act, because the evidence that you are motivated or somebody on your team is motivated or your children are motivated is not that they say they're motivated or they feel motivated. It's if they consistently act is when somebody is motivated. That's the evidence. So purpose is a reason to do that thing, because reasons reap results. So whether you want to motivate yourself or motivate somebody else, you must uncover the reasons. And it can't just be an intellectual reason. A lot of people know what to do in their head, but they're not acting with their hands. And to get it from your head, goals or certain objectives or KPIs here in your head into your hands where you're actually implementing, you must check in with the second H, which is your heart, which are the emotions, right? Head, heart, hands. That's the syntax for greater success. Because if you're not acting with your hands consistently, you need to feel it in your heart, meaning what are the rewards that come from consistently acting in this way? And what are the consequences of not acting? Allow yourself to feel that, because when you have purpose, you're starting with why, right? And that's a wonderful place to be because it gives you fuel for when you're moving and achieving your goals. Now, if a person just has purpose and they feel it, will they always be motivated? And I said, no, they could be missing E. What's the E in the equation? P times E times S3. E stands for energy. Energy. Let's take a very simple example everyone can relate to. We know that exercise is good for your brain. When you exercise, it's good for your body also. In fact, as your body moves, your brain grooves. People who exercise, they have better mental acuity, they clear the brain fog, they have more energy, they test better on memory, and yet not everybody exercises consistently. If you want greater motivation to exercise, for example, you first feel the P, the purpose, all the benefits. You feel good, you're getting more done, you're going to be able to live longer and feel the consequences of not exercising. You can feel the opposite of that. And then here's the thing. Let's say somebody doesn't have energy because they have a newborn baby and they haven't slept in 2 or 3 nights. Or maybe they want to be motivated to read. They know leaders are readers. And we like to get people reading one book a week, literally reading one book a week. It takes about 45 minutes a day to finish one book a week for the average reader. Now, by the way, if you could read faster and triple your reading speed, we have students in over 195 countries, and we, on average, 300% increase. That means 15 minutes a day. But whether it's 15 minutes a day or 45 minutes a day, you can't get yourself to be motivated. Maybe it's because you have purpose, you know all the reasons and rewards you'll experience, but you don't have the energy because you didn't sleep, or maybe you ate a big processed meal and you're in a food coma and you lack energy. So that's why in the book we talk about 10 keys for optimizing your mental vitality to clear that brain fatigue. Things like sleep and how to optimize your sleep and manage your stress. And or even some people are around what they call energy vampires that suck all your energy out and you don't feel very motivated. So E is energy. And then my mind went, okay, if somebody just has purpose and they have energy, will they always be motivated to succeed in turbulent times, to be able to make transformation happen? And I said, no, they can be missing the last element, which are S3, 3 S's, small, simple steps. Small, simple steps. Often people don't make progress, or they're not motivated because it's too intimidating, this goal. They want to make a global change, or they have something in their mind, but it's too big and it's too confusing. And a confused mind or brain, it doesn't act, it doesn't do anything. And so a small, simple step in the case of exercising is maybe, okay, that's too much, 30, 45 minutes exercise, that I'm not motivated to do that. But what can I do? A small, simple step, put on my running shoes. A small, simple step, maybe reading 45 minutes a day is too big for somebody who's never read, who doesn't read consistently. Maybe a small, simple step is opening up the book, right? Or reading one line. How you discover your small, simple step is asking yourself a question. What is the tiniest action I could take to give me progress towards this goal? What is the tiniest action I can take right now to give me progress to this goal? So tiny, I cannot fail, because it requires very little effort and very little energy. And so that is the formula for human motivation. And if you feel like yourself or someone on your team or a family member is not making progress because they're not acting, check in on purpose, check in on energy, and check in on small, simple steps. And finally, the last M, as we've said, you have mindset, motivation. The final M are the methods, right? Where if mindset is what's possible and your motivation is your purpose, then the methods are the process. Now, as you draw these circles out, you see that there's an overlap between the 3 circles. I'm going to give you 3 I's, 3 I's. The first I, where mindset crosses over with motivation, you have inspiration. You have people who are experts on mindset. And there is a great book called Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck. You have experts on motivation, research on motivation, and motivational speakers. Where they cross over, you have inspiration. Inspirational movies, inspirational books that change your mindset and give you some motivation. But you lack the methods, so you don't know what to do. You have fuel and you believe things are possible, but you don't have the methods. Where mindset crosses over with methods, you have ideation. Mindset is you believe it's possible in your mind, and in your mind, you know the methods of what to do for your health, for impact, for your business, for your kids, but you lack the motivation. So it just stays an idea, ideation. And finally, where motivation crosses over with methods, motivation and methods, you have implementation. Implementation. That means that you are motivated, purpose, and energy, and you know what to do, the methods for investing, the methods for impact, the methods for intelligence, but you're still going to be stuck in that box because you're only going to be able to achieve what your mindset allows, what you believe is possible, what you believe you're capable of, what you believe you also deserve. So this is what everybody should see, something like this model here: mindset, motivation, and methods. And where they all cross over in the middle, you have a 4th I, where the 3 M's and the 3 I's connect right in the middle. The 4th I is integration. Integration. What does it mean to integrate? It's like integer or integral. It means to become whole. And this is just who you are. That is a limitless state. Now, this model is a lens for you to look at every area of your life where you want more fulfillment, you want more progress, because it takes the judgment out of it. And you can say, okay, if I'm stuck here, or my child is stuck here, or my team member is stuck, or as a community, we are stuck not making advanced progress. Is it our individual or collective mindset? Do we not believe it is possible? Do we not believe we're capable of it? Do we not believe we deserve it? Or is it our motivation? Do we not have purpose? That's why it's so important to have, to be clear about your purpose and your values and what you stand for. Do we not have enough energy and resources, right, at a more community level? Or is it we're making it too complicated? How do we simplify this? Because thinking is good, but overthinking and wanting it to be perfect could stall all progress. And then finally, the last one is going through the methods. Maybe we're using old methodology or old processes for manufacturing, old processes for leadership, or old processes for healthcare, or old processes for learning and reading and remembering. And so it's also a framework for not only looking at and analyzing your life and your current situation, it's also a framework for modeling individuals and communities that are doing well and say, what is their mindset? What do they believe is possible? What do they believe they're capable of? What is their purpose? What are they doing to harness energy and resourcefulness? What are they doing in terms of small, simple steps? What are they doing individually or collectively as methods for learning and manufacturing and education and impact? This is the framework for unleashing human potential. And so my message for everybody here who's watching, and we'll go into Q&As right now, Patrick, I really appreciate it, is in this current situation, do not downgrade your dreams and your goals individually or as an organization or as a community or even as a nation or a planet. Do not downgrade your dreams to meet this current situation. Let's upgrade our mindset, our motivation, and the methods we're using to be able to meet those goals and to meet those audacious dreams.
Thank you so much, Jim. This is incredibly an incredibly therapeutic use of all these letters that we have in the alphabet, and I know they're designed to help us really cement in our minds what this framework is all about and how we can achieve all of this. So we've been getting a lot of very, very good questions, and I'm going to take the first one because what I found really appealing in what you said is about these the three S's. It's small and simple steps, and I guess it's quite a daunting thing to pluck up the courage and say, I'm just going to take small steps with a view to addressing some of the very large challenges that we are facing collectively and perhaps individually as well. So this is a question from Egypt coming in and says, this sounds great at an individual and team level. What is your advice on how to disseminate this approach or this mentality to a nation or a government?
That's a powerful question. And when we're talking about small, I believe when we're talking about purpose, it could be big and audacious and dreams that could inspire somebody to give them the energy and the motivation to follow through. And you could dream big and then act small, act locally, if you will, in those small, simple steps. And this could be a top-down or a bottom-up kind of approach, because ultimately we're in this together. We could become limitless together, because how do you become limitless in a limited world? We do it by working together, meaning it's not solo, it is social. Like, I love the words that we use have an impact on our brain, meaning that a lot of the terminology, whether it's social distancing, is not 100% accurate, because we are being social right now. Everybody who's enacting right now, we're being social. We should physically distance, but I don't want people to mentally distance. I don't want people to become emotionally distant from things. And the same thing I would say as an individual, we would apply towards a family, towards a team, and or as a community, is to break it down and go through the three areas and say, you know, in terms of mindset, how can we inspire people or uplift them to change the way of thinking? And it's not necessarily easy, right? It's actually this simple, but it's also that difficult also. It can be simple, but also very, you know, it can be also difficult. So let me acknowledge that, meaning that even the collective talk that we have in our mind, if somebody, our minds individually or collectively is like this supercomputer, metaphorically, that if we say to ourselves, oh, you know, and our self-talk and our belief systems are the program it will run. So if we say to ourselves as an individual, for example, we're not good at remembering names, we won't remember the name of the next person we meet because we program our supercomputer not to. Now that works for an individual level and also at a collective level as well. What are the global beliefs that we have to share that we should reevaluate right now, meaning working together? Because I believe that people who get what we help to create, we get invested in, right? We can do it collectively. So how can we all support each other? When I'm talking about a butterfly, it's interesting because the goal is to come out of this stronger and to be able to soar. There's something in science called a butterfly effect, that a butterfly flapping its wings somewhere in the world could create a tsunami of change in dynamic systems halfway across the globe, right? And so we know we're all connected. Viruses are contagious. We're connected through fear, right? But so is positivity. So is performance. That's contagious as well. So is wisdom. And so is kindness. And so if we all do our part to be able, I believe the life we live are the lessons we teach others. It's not what we say, but the life that we're living in that place. If we're living this mindset of possibility, if we're living by example, where we don't let fear shrink us down, but we're still not fearless, we can still experience the fear, but we have courage in spite of fear, we have motivation. If we're demonstrating to others new methodologies that get results, because people won't do what you say, but they'll see what you do. And it's better well done than well said. Then we could all create this massive butterfly effect by being an example, again, because the life that we live are the lessons we teach and share.
You've mentioned fear, and I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But before going there, you've also spoken again about the butterflies and the cocoons. And we started off now talking about the way we can bring this into government and into a nation. Now, we all have been confined to our houses for an extensive period of time. And so this is really what this next question is trying to get at. And it says, what can you suggest for those of us who are not getting a chance to cocoon during this time because we're busier than ever, because with kids at home and are struggling with online learning and working and a number of chores and activities and demands on our time, life, attention, etc. So how do we make all of those different levels of reality? How do we bring them together?
Wonderful, wonderful. Let me restate also just that it's never going to be perfect. But the goal is to make progress. So it's never going to be a time in a moment in time where everything in life is just perfectly in sync. And it's just like, because life is dynamic, obviously. And just like when I was talking about the power of words, a lot of people, they're looking at their home and they can't distinguish. Are they working from home or are they living at work? It's just like the same place nowadays. And with home comes a level of distractions with family and responsibilities. I would say that the word balance is interesting because the goal is not necessarily balance, because the word, people often talk about work-life balance, and balance is a loaded word, and it's a word that we all use, but sometimes words have weight to it, meaning when you look up the word balance, it is meaning an equal weight and distribution. And people don't necessarily want equal balance of working out and working at their career and being with kids. You don't want an equal amount of equal time. It's like an orchestra. Not every instrument or musician, they play the equal amount of time, but each one plays in harmony. And that would be an interesting word to adapt in our life, is how do we create this harmony at home where each one plays a certain role and it creates this art, it creates this symphony and this amazing music together. And it's hard to do when we have things outside of our control, right? And, whether it's outside of our home in terms of the environment or internal environment with our family as well. But anyone who has kids knows it's never going to be perfect, right? And so the goal here is to make little progress. And how can you create harmony within this? And I would say two suggestions actually. A 6C, if you're at a 6-1, is consistency. Consistency. Often people who are forced to work at home, they don't have the structure that they did in an office, for example, or the children they no longer have their routine, if you will. And I believe that treasure you seek is often hidden in a daily routine, meaning first you create your routine and then your routine creates you. First you create your habits and then your habits create you back. And I think what's very important, one suggestion for everybody here is to really help your family create a morning routine and an evening routine. A morning routine, an evening routine might already be in place, but really one of the things, I have a video out there, it has over 10 million views. You could search Jim Kwik morning routine. There are 10 things I do every morning. You could do it with your family to jumpstart everyone's brain. Because the one thing you don't want to do, because I think most successful have a to-do list, but they also have a not to-do list, is, here's a quick suggestion, is not touch your phone the first 30 minutes of the day. Just really quickly, if you're having trouble with distraction and you're trying to multitask, we're not really multitasking. What we're doing in science, research says multitasking is a myth. We're actually task switching. We're going from one thing to another. And the cost it has is, number one, it wastes time. It can take anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes to regain your focus and flow. Number two, you make more errors when you're trying to do multiple things. And it's hard when you're working from home because there's a lot of things demanding on your time and your attention. And the third thing it costs you besides time and mistakes is energy. When you switch from one task to another, it burns up more brain glucose, your mind's fuel, if you will. And that's why people struggle with mental fatigue. So how do you remain focused at home in a world full of distractions? One of the things is to be able to teach your family how to have set routines, right? And set up constraints, because sometimes a constraint a limitation will actually make you limitless. Meaning when you have a constraint in work to create a proposal or to write a document, or you have a set constraint of time or money or something, then it forces commitment. It forces concentration. It forces creativity, right? And one of the things, if you had to reach your 1-year goal in the next 3 months, it forces you to ask a new question and get laser focus. So I would say constraints could support you in this, meaning having a routine, a consistent routine would absolutely be supportive in that environment. Knowing, again, it's never going to be perfectly balanced, but the goal is how do we introduce more harmony in this, in the environmental level, in terms of set things, saying, okay, between here and here, mom or dad is working here, or within internal environments, setting up belief systems and scaffolding and structure for people to make progress in their day.
That's really helpful. And I'm going to come back to the question around fear. But I'm also mindful that some of the questions that I'm putting out sound negative, but I think it's only natural because we live in a time when there's great uncertainty, there is fear, there are challenges that we're trying to work through, and at the same time, I think everyone's appreciative of the techniques and ideas that you're proposing to turn these into positives. So the question says, this model looks great, but where do you put fear? In other words, what is the impact of fear on this model? And I think it, perhaps, I don't know if I'm rightly or wrongly paraphrasing this question or adding to this question, I think just the fact that we are now dealing with a virus that has had a significant toll around the world puts an additional fear factor or fear reality into how people are now living, working, and going about their daily lives. So how do you manage fear, or how does fear come into the mix of those three different M's and the broadly?
That's wonderful. Where I see fear having a play is, number one, in our mindset. because there is a reality of what's going on. This isn't positive thinking at all, what I'm saying. I'm saying you want to, in order to succeed, if the goal here is to come out of this, is what is the story that everybody wants to tell on the other side of this? What is, if we were to future pace and do a thought experiment and fast forward whenever amount of time, who knows how long, but looking back at these times, what is the story you want to tell? Not about what was going on so much in the world, but what was going on in our world, and act from that place. And really, for me, fear affects mindset, and fear, it affects your motivation, right? Fear, and this is real. There is a real visceral threat that's out there. I'm not saying don't focus on it. I'm saying you want, in order to be your best and be resourceful for the people that you care about, for your family, your community, for our planet, is fear. Constant fear puts you in fight, flight, or freeze. Neurologically, physiologically, that's what it does. And you're not going to create, you're not going to be nurturing, you're not going to be able to innovate in a place of fight, flight, or freezing. And so the goal is, all of learning and all of life is state dependent. All of learning and all of life is state dependent. It comes from how we feel, because how we feel also changes our mindset. Because in constant fear, our lens starts to shrink down, and we start focusing on everything that's threatening. And it's why, as you know, as maybe a hunter gatherer, you're just concerned because you have to, it's your survival. And so I'm saying the leadership for me in times of crisis, it's about identifying more with a thermostat than a thermometer. A thermometer, think about it, its only function, a thermometer, it reacts to the environment. It reacts to the environment. That's all it does. A thermostat doesn't react to the environment, though. What does a thermostat do? It gauges the environment, so it knows what's going on, because it's not about being blind to the realities of what's going on. It gauges it and then can make a good decision and set a new temperature, or it can set a new goal, or it can set a new vision. And then it imposes on the environment, and the environment is reacting to it, as opposed to being a thermometer where it just reacts to everything else. So again, in times of fear, yes, it is, what's going on objectively is threatening. But being in a fearful state doesn't make it any better. So how do you get more? It's not about resources, it's about your internal resourcefulness, which comes from your mindset, your motivation, and the internal methods that you're using. And one of the things, again, that gets you out of fear is positive motion, right? Is through service, is through even an exercise on gratitude. We know gratitude rewires your brain for peace, productivity, and performance. And a simple thing to get out of fear for you and your family is saying something like this, because we can't even do it collectively if we can't do it individually, is manage your state of how you feel. And to get out of fear, a simple thing is, what if tomorrow the only things I had in my life were the things I expressed gratitude for today? What if the only things I had in my life tomorrow were the things I expressed gratitude for today? And this exercise, it sounds like it's like positivity. It's getting you to control your focus. It's the science-based understanding that focus equals feelings, and feelings are going to determine your actions. And if you focus on everything that's threatening, it's going to affect how you feel, and it's going to impose on your mindset and your motivation. It's going to constrict it. So one of the ways out of fear is to focus on gratitude and making these daily progress things. And when it comes back to your time, even managing your time back at home with your kids, remember this phrase: the most important thing is to keep the most important thing the most important thing. Going back to your values that you got through your clarity exercise, remember your daily activities is the most important thing is to keep the most important things the most important things. You don't want to get really good and put your time into things and climb that ladder of success just to get up to the top and realize it's leaning towards the wrong wall, right? And so you want to focus on the things that are most important and make that the basis of your decisions, including things like your thoughts, including your purpose, your small steps, including the methodologies that you're using.
It's really about focusing on what matters in a time horizon that matters, and not get paralyzed by some of the things that we find currently overwhelming, isn't it? And I wanted to come back again to that metaphor of the cocoon and the butterfly. And there's a question here by Peter, who's based in Dubai. He says, it seems like we are moving to a new earth and society as opposed to a recovery. So is it about, is this time an opportunity for us to imagine what a future might look like? What would we like the future to be? And is this the most opportune time for us to be doing it?
I always believe in the power of vision, that the power of imagination. Einstein said imagination is more powerful than knowledge, because knowledge is an audit of what is. Imagination is what things can be. And your imagination is really limitless. And all of leadership and progress is taking the invisible of what's inside your mind and making it visible. As people look around their environment right now, everything that was human made came from somebody's mind, right? And so imagination is power. And all the studies done on imagination, your mind doesn't know the difference between something you vividly imagine and something that is real. And that's one of the best ways to change your mindset about what is possible. Because when people, they say, there's a phrase that says, a coward dies 1,000 deaths, a courageous person just once. Because the person who's fearful and is constantly repeating that over and over again, whether it's a micro of them scared of public speaking, they're rehearsing in their mind 1,000 times them failing and feeling that every single time, or larger, they're using their imagination for something they don't want, then use your imagination for something that you do want to create. So I would encourage everybody to spend time when I'm talking about, it doesn't have to be a lot of time. When I say care, clarity, and contribute, you don't have to spend 8 hours on these things. Small, simple step, 10 minutes on what you and your family could do for self-care, 10 minutes of what you could do for clarity, a little exercise, a little journaling or meditation or whatever gets you clarity, 10 minutes of contribution, 10 minutes of creativity, 10 minutes even of sitting down and learning something or reading something brand new. As you feed your mind something positive, just like when you eat good food, you start desiring that things that don't serve you quite as much. And so I totally agree. The power of imagination and vision, they say without vision, people will perish. So in your mind, start your day instead of checking your phone, because when you check your phone, it rewires your brain for distraction and it rewires your brain for reaction, just reacting to everything when you're so relaxed in that state. Instead, why don't you visualize your day as a simple level? Like, think about your day and imagine yourself coming back, just like at the end of the day, somebody asks you, well, how was your day? And you say, it was amazing. What are the 3 things that happened to you personally? And what are the 3 things that happened to you professionally? And then work your way towards the day, right? Where you celebrating, work backwards.
James, this has been incredibly helpful, insightful, and therapeutic. And I would like to thank you for the session. We are almost exactly at 4 o'clock. I was just looking back at my notes. In the introductory remarks, I said that you would teach us frameworks to achieve what we don't think possible, and help us get unstuck and make progress in life and work. And I'm glad I've not oversold, because I think everyone, the hundreds of people on this call, will agree that it's been incredibly insightful. Again, I will not look at the alphabet the same way again, and there are lots of things that I will implement and that I'm going to remember, because just the way you've been able to convey them has been very positive, positively reinforcing, and just very, very nice. So I would like to, before closing the session, thank you very much, Jim, for your input and for your time and for the information you've shared.
I very much appreciate that, Patrick. In final words, I would say, everyone watching, again, if you're going through difficult times, you inspire people with your grit and your grace. And sometimes we have to fight through some of the bad days in our life to be able to earn some of the best days. And my suggestion is, be how you act and show up in life matters. I don't encourage people to be too optimistic to scare, too positive to doubt, and too determined to be defeated. And just always just realize that our life is like an egg, that if an egg is broken by an outside force, life ends. But if it's broken by an inside force, life begins. Great things start from the inside. And you have greatness inside of you. You have greatness as a society. And thank you everybody for connecting on this and having this conversation about really what is possible. I encourage everybody, I wish everybody safety and security and lots of life, lots of love, lots of laughter, and always lots of learning.
Great. Thank you so much, Jim, for being with us. I will hand now over to my colleagues, to our colleagues at the World Government Summit. And I just wanted to, before they make their statements, I just wanted to thank them and acknowledge everyone on the World Government Summit team for making this happen. There's lots of people behind the scenes who make sure that we're all on the straight and narrow, understand what to do, when to do it, and that is ultimately what makes this session such a success. So with that, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Jim, for such an insightful session. And we look forward to inviting everyone to our next session. So stay tuned for the sessions this week. They're on our website and social media platforms. And we look forward to seeing you all. Thank you, Jim and Patrick, once again. It's been really insightful. And I hope we all take these learnings and action them in our daily lives. Stay safe and take care.